I'm David Williams, president of the Health Business Group. Welcome to the second edition of Health Business TV. I did my first show last week and got some great feedback on it. People feel like they got to know me better as a result of watching, so with that encouragement, I've decided to continue. It's been a really exciting week for me in healthcare. I'm talking to a couple companies about becoming a board member. I'll tell you more about that next week. On the consulting side, we've been working on some exciting projects on some good technology platforms. And I recorded a podcast interview this week with the CEO of Quantia, which is a physician engagement company. I'll post that interview next week. Well, this week I posted a podcast on the Health Business blog with First Opinion, which is an app that gives inexpensive access to physicians in India, at least in the case of my physician. I'll show you what the screen looks like here. It enables you to text back and forth with a physician, and it's very low price or even free. There's a few technical glitches, and it's a little hard to express myself over text and get through exactly what I'm asking, and so I'm still going to rely on the informal access I have through some of my physician relatives, but it's pretty neat, and I suggest that you check it out along with the podcast. Well, we're at the point now with the Affordable Care Act where the average person may be more interested in the nuts and bolts and the impact of it rather than continuing the ideological fight about whether it should be repealed or replaced. And so there's a lot of interest in the premiums that are being announced for the Obamacare health insurance exchanges for 2015. I read an interesting analysis by Avalere Health and another one by the Wall Street Journal this week. The Avalere piece stresses how the average premium is rising anywhere from 2.5% to 16%, depending on what state you're in, except in Oregon, where it's actually dropping. The Wall Street Journal focused on the 8.5% to 23% increases that are proposed by the biggest plans in each state. I have a little bit of a different take on it. The health plans were very aggressive on their pricing for 2014, the first year of the exchange. They really didn't want to miss out on the chance for a land grab to get a whole bunch of customers coming into the market. The consumers chose largely based on price, and the biggest winners in terms of market share were those who had the lowest price or the second lowest price. That was the case in every state. Now, those plans that got the most members are increasing their price, and there's two reasons for that. First of all, they may have underpriced their offering in the first place and aren't making as much money as they expected. And the second reason is they figure, well, maybe consumers won't want to switch. They're relying on the inertia and the challenges with navigating the exchanges in the first place, and also the challenges that people might have to undergo when they disrupt their provider relationships. So they're hoping to hang on to those same customers, but at a more profitable price. Now, in a commodity market like an exchange, you'd expect the prices to narrow in their range from the most expensive plan to the least expensive plan, kind of like how gas station prices tend to converge in the same neighborhood. But it's actually going the other reason, and there's two reasons for it. Well, the first is related to the one we talked about it before. Those plans that priced too high last year want to try again, but they're also conscious of the inertia of those that made initial choices and went with their competitors. There's also some new health plans that are coming in, or national plans that are entering new states. They know they have to be aggressive on price to win new customers. But there's a really important takeaway if you're a consumer on one of these exchanges, and that is, despite the fact that the big plans are raising their prices and that average premiums are going up, it should still be possible for you to get a lower price as long as you're willing to switch. Now, in Massachusetts, we had the launch this week of Healthcare Compass by Massachusetts Health Quality Partners, and it lets people compare physicians' primary care practices one against the other. There's some things I really like about it. You have some very sound methodologies that are being used. These aren't just random surveys on the web. The sample sizes are statistically significant, and when there's not enough data, they just don't give a rating. It's possible to compare multiple practices on one page. On a 3-point scale, you can email the page, you can print the page, and generally speaking, the ratings are consistent with my perception of the strengths and weaknesses of the practices. Now, there's some things I'd like to see different, and the MHQP has told me they will be working on this for the next time. One is to see information presented at the individual physician level. Now everything's at the level of practices, which is important, but it's not enough for me if I'm choosing a practice. I'd also like to be able to figure out which are the top practices in the state, not just compare the ones that are near my zip code. And I'd love to see a composite measure so I can see an overall rating for the practice. If I had to choose one now, I would use the percentage of people who are willing to recommend that practice. Now, on the Democratic Convention, which was held last weekend, two candidates got knocked out, Joe Avalone, who's a healthcare person, and Juliet Kayyem. But Don Berwick, who was the head of Medicare, did quite well. He almost matched Martha Coakley's total, and Steve Grossman came through as well. So that means we still have a heavyweight healthcare person in the Democratic race in the form of Don Berwick, not to mention on the Republican side, Charlie Baker, and then among the independents, Evan Falchuk and Jeff McCormick. I've organized an ebook that has my interviews with these candidates about healthcare policy, and you can download it from the Health Business blog. So that wraps it up for today. Let me know what you think. Send me comments, send me an email, follow me on Twitter at HealthBizBlog, and subscribe to Health Business TV. Until next time, farewell.